if somebody wanted to actually hire your services, do you do most of it over the phone, most of it in person, online? How do you...
Lately I find I'm doing a lot more energy distance work.
Okay.
Which is, it's just been easier for a lot of people because a lot of people are being a lot more migratory lately.
Mm-hmm.
It also opens up the base of clientele. So generally someone contacts me, we email, then we speak on the phone. Mm-hmm. We find out what's going on. Mm-hmm. And
so that it really is, in terms of verbalizing it, you're not intuitively saying, this is what I think is the issue.
Well, I always like to hear what they have to say.
Absolutely.
I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it's where they are starting from.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where their consciousness is. That is important.
Okay.
And, then you get the general gist of what they want.
Mm-hmm.
And you go from there.
Okay.
Some people have more experience with energy work than others. So, they may say, I just want to feel better.
Mm-hmm.
So at that point, you just get in there and you try to get in and figure out what's going on in the system that's creating this for them and unwinding that.
Mm-hmm.
If it's an acute situation, you want to get them out of pain.
Right.
If it's an acute emotional situation, you want to calm them down. Mm-hmm. Get them grounded. Mm-hmm. And Vortex is lovely because it can do all of that. And do it very quickly, which is a plus. Okay,
so quickly, what kind of a process does it end up looking? Is it a...
My first time treatments usually run about an hour, 20 minutes.
Okay.
And then after that, the treatments run, 45 minutes to 50 minutes.
Okay.
And, you can get a lot done in that time period. If you really want to get into a core issue, and core issues are often run a lot deeper than people realize, and it can take you,
Mm-hmm.
There were times when I thought 5 years ago I was in a core issue. No, now I think I'm in my core issues. If you really want to work on a core issue that is been troubling you your whole life, mm-hmm. I'm saying about 9 hours of channeling to really clear a system out of its core issues. And at that point, when I say clear it out, I mean there's no structures holding that in place anymore. Mm-hmm. So what's going to end up happening at that point is that the issue's just going to,
But you mentioned earlier, there's all these layers, that's what I would imagine, that there's all these layers that you're working through. So do you end up working with people for a year, once a week, or do you work, a lot of times people just need the initial help and then...
It varies. If someone is dealing with a severe health issue and they are, in an acute situation and they're just feeling bad at that moment, if it gets better and then it doesn't get triggered again, they're fine. So sometimes I'll hear from people and, I'll hear from them once every 6 months ago when this is getting triggered. Mm-hmm. And if they're, are just wanting to feel better at that moment, that's fine.
That works too.
That works,
okay.
That's fine. If they are, after a certain point, if something, happens, I just want to feel better, and then, then they start to wonder why it's happening, then you get into
right.
moving into the issue of what's causing that, which is more, human beings are amazing camouflage artists.
Yes.
We hide things from ourselves. We're very good at it.
Yes. And oftentimes it takes somebody else to be able to see something that is so transparent, and yet we don't see it in ourselves as easily and as quickly. And yet when somebody else can bring that, to the forefront, it's like, oh, yes, that's me.
Mm-hmm. 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 And then there's, oh, no, that's not me at all.
Sure.
Okay, well, maybe I'm totally off on this one, but why don't we try anyway and working from this level? I mean, we get that a lot, And, I've had situations where, when I first started doing this work, I would work with other people who'd been doing it, training in what I've trained in, or had other abilities as well, and they have told me something about myself, and I was like, oh, okay, and I didn't get it. Mm-hmm. A year later, it becomes so clear,
right.
And it pops into my head. I remember I've called people and I said, we had this conversation a year ago, and I had no idea what you were talking about.
Right.
Man, you're good. You really nailed it on the head, and I just wasn't ready to see it yet.
Right.
And that's, what you run into. And as a healer, that's something you're going to run into over and over and over again. And, it's just wherever they are in their process is fine.
Right.
It's perfect. It's all perfect, and that's the biggest thing that I've learned in becoming a healer, is that it's all perfect all the time. And even if it doesn't feel that way, you know.
Right.
And, you know.
Learning to accept and be okay with who you are and where you are in the process, knowing that it's going to continue to get better and more revealing in terms of where the happiness and joy in your life really resides.
Yeah, and you know, waking up to who you really are, because we have so many ideas of what we are that we have taken on. There have been a couple of occasions when in my training and in my meditation where I have suddenly flipped from my perspective and, you know, started looking at the world and myself from a divine perspective, and others from a divine perspective. And when the few times that has happened, and it's been such a moment of clarity, it is just amazing how beautiful people are. You know, they just are beautiful. Yes. You know, and I've often been around, you know, spiritual leaders, and they just, you know, fall all over their students. They just, you know, they just have this energy of, I love you. You know, you are wonderful. And you see the students trying to accept this, you know, and they're like, you know, no, I'm not. I'm awful. You know, I'm overweight. I'm single. You know, I'm nothing that I thought I was going to be. And you know, that's often what human beings are. They just don't know how beautiful they are. Right. And so this is a real, you know, this type of healing in my, you know, and from my idea is an unveiling of just, you know, everyone is a god or a goddess. They are. They're all part of the divine spirit, the divine spark. Right. So how can they not be? Right. Right. You know, but, you know, when you're talking about how Western culture is, they've spent a lot of time separating themselves from divinity. Right. You know, here's God, God's great, and, you know, I'm just a sinner, you know, these sorts of things. And, you know, it's so when people start to move away from Western medicine and start dealing with energy work, it's that kind of idea that is the hardest thing for them to change. And to be able to see themselves, because it feels like they're not being humble anymore.
Right. It is a switch, but and it's not about not being humble. It is very humbling, but also acknowledging the power within and the ability to see the divine in everyone else. And that's the big trigger. You know, it's not just you. It's not just about you. This is why we get so trapped, is that we really just can only see it from the perspective of, you know, of separateness and, you know, me. And once you get out of that, start to get out of that, and it's easier to flip and start seeing everyone from this place of oneness. Once you start to realize that you are part of, Rick Wyman used to say, we're all leaves on the same tree. You know, once you actually realize that the leaves around you shaking are not the enemy and rustling, that they're actually just something just like you, attached to the same tree, you know, it's actually a very comforting thought. Well, thank you. That was wonderful. And if we'll have your email address or your website, something. So thanks so much. Thank you. Thank you.